Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you a bit of an update as to what happened in the update. I want to talk about the implications of the points and things. I want to give it some time, form some better thoughts, before I really tackle necessarily what I see happening from the Balanced Data Slate MFM for Tyranid specifically. And onto this point, just clicking absent-mindedly there, I wanted to also highlight that I don't know how GW has done it. I don't know how they've done this, but they re-uploaded the fact that they didn't color code some of the points the first go around. So the document looked like this when I was recording at 5 a.m. No colors. Um, then they fixed it, and now going back to it today, I'll just refresh just to prove it. Core rules, MFM. Just make it easier. Go to Tyranids already. 36. Don't know how they've done this. No clue how they've done that. But that's that. Thankfully, though, uh, I took a screenshot because I needed to use it for the thumbnail. So I have color coding visual aid for us today. Now, wanted to really discuss a bit more of this, and this won't be in order what you see on the points wise or whatever, or I guess I should say alphabetically, but more order of what I want to talk about. Important to me. I was gonna say order of importance, but it's not. Yeah, it's not. So first off, Neurolictor and Trigon is kind of what I want to talk about, mainly because of Vanguard onslaught. I know a lot of people have probably talked about this already. This is good for Vanguard onslaught. I think there's hope that Vanguard onslaught stabilizes with this. I've talked about how out of our detachments, it ebbs and flows just about the hardest. Crusher, once people have finally figured out, yay, use the strats, it's been more stable. Assimilation Swarm people are still getting there, but the people that do play it, there's a good win rate. Vanguard Onslaught is our. I, I'm not going to repeat the same thing that I said time and time again. Let's find a new phrase. It is our. It's our problem child, which isn't. I guess that isn't what that would go to in this one. But, it has its good months, it has its bad. Invasion Fleet is always there to comfort you. Vanguard Onslaught, when people forget how to play against Vanguard Onslaught, they lose. And then they remember by next month. So, the thing that I think Vanguard Onslaught, and one thing that it definitely was missing, is a little bit more punch. You can throw 30 Gene Stealers in somebody's face, but some armies have a way to handle that, others don't. And if they do, kind of SOL for the most part. So that's why we saw the evolution of Vanguard Onslaught list entail more punch. People have been bringing the Neuro Tyrant and Zoe's the think tank, if you will, for a bit now because infantry unit uppy downy, there's battle shock shenanigans happening, da 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 da. But also, the other punch has been in the form of Exocrine because you need something at least strength 9 to punch a thing. The AP at 3 is always nice. We bring it in our other list. We know because we need more punch. We don't need to kill any other little thing. We don't. That's not a thing that we get stuck on for the most part. We need to start punching up on that part. And I like the evolution of incorporating more Raveners, and of course I love the inclusion of more Von Ryan's Leapers. But they run into the same problem of where they're capping out at punching or mid to low tier infantry. You can only do so much with weight of attacks, right? So I think the Trigon coming down to 140 does open a new door because that is 12 attacks for 140 points hitting on threes at strength 9, AP2 damage 3, with a deep striker that can become lone up, 10 inches of advance and charge, T10, 3 of save, 14 wounds in this detachment. And one of the other things that I kind of didn't think too much about. Um, is until, well, recently, of course. So previously I didn't think about this. But one of the biggest things that annoyed me of Vanguard Onslaught changes that I felt was unnecessary. I understand why they did it, but it was annoying to me, is what they did to Surprise Assault, where previously you could target you over there and me over here. You're taking a battle shock test over there. There wasn't a range requirement, none of that nonsense, none of those restrictions. So they changed it to your shooting phase or fight phase just after Vanguard Invader from your army has selected its targets. That Vanguard Invader unit is your target for this stratagem. Select one enemy unit that was selected as the target of one or more of your unit's attacks. That enemy unit must take a battle shock test. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, +1 to hit. If the battle shock test was failed, add 1 to the wound roll as well. So, um, that's annoying, right? I didn't really feel that it needed to take that nerf, but it did also ease out the problem of, well, they also added an FAQ to, well, if I will of the hive mind my thing, but I'm still targeting my opponent, do I get the reduce? It was a bunch of malarkey. Um, but they smoothed that part out, and the problem is now you don't get to just trigger that battle shock test, which of course, for the state of the game, the way it operated wasn't fair. I'm bug enough to admit that. However, I didn't think that it was on that unfair operating rule to the point where it needs to be nerfed. And this isn't bad now. I don't want to give this perception that this is bad now. Still fine, and it still comes in handy. The thing, however, though, is because you're playing Vanguard Onslaught, most things don't have a way to trigger this in the shooting phase out of the units that you have access to and are bringing, right? Because realistically, uh, the Winged Hive Tyrant does have a ranged weapon, but because of the change to synapse, you're going melee only. Gargoyles can trigger this. Keep that in mind. You can do this with gargoyles. Tyrannosaurus, you're not bringing Harpy Hive Crone. Other people that are more sane than me probably aren't bringing. Lictor, nope. Moloch, nope. Neurolictor, nope. Raveners with the ranged weapon, and this is a one where it's community 50-50 and how much you prefer, because you can either take Raveners with a ranged weapon just to get, well, to proc something like Surprise Assault, and get one or two more wounds in there before you charge in because you're probably going to die anyway, or you go for the 4-up save. Now, I'm of the opinion and the math behind it that the 4-up save very rarely helps you. Like, it very rarely helps you. But I have seen some people swear by it and have good enough results. I'm of the I'd rather just possibly lift a wound or two, trigger surprise assault camp. So, there's Raveners. Trigon, which we'll be talking about today, does have a ranged weapon, and finally might see play double over at Von Reinslieper's no ranged weapon. So, and also, you're not bringing ranged warriors currently, because they're kind of, not even kind of, they're pretty bad to attach to a Wing Tyranid Prime to make that a Vanguard Invader unit either. So, with that realistically, your options of triggering surprise assault in your shooting phase is limited, but if you have the ability to trigger in your shooting phase, and get something battle shocked, and if you have the CP, trigger in your battle phase, get something battle shocked, things like that, or the battle phase, I should say. If you have more options of when to crank out surprise assault, Vanguard Onslaught starts to stabilize. Now, going back up here, Vanguard Invaders, access to fallback in charge for everybody, at Vanguard Invaders, advance in charge for everybody. Now you have a 140 point beat stick. It is a distraction Carnifex with deep strike, but also, damn, it might actually do something. Because after you've infiltrated, screened, scouted, all of that goodness, you now have access to a beat stick with deep strike, right? The Raveners were doing it by weight of attacks with deep strike. Now you're doing it with the weight of the attack, right? And not to mention, 12 attacks isn't like not isn't anything to slouch to scarf at. Excuse me, scoff at. That's how that saying goes. Anything to scoff at for what for pretty much 40k. Now, of course, there's always better, but for one model delivering 12 attacks at 3 damage and AP 2, it's not bad, and mind you, that's 1 AP less than the Exocrine that we were incorporating in Vanguard Onslaught list, because you have to hit around that range, and your Exocrine usually hitting around on 3s. So, now you take the Trigon that is hitting on 3s and can go to 2s with once again Surprise Assault. I think this has a chance for Vanguard Onslaught to really shine. And what happened? Why wasn't this happening before? Well, at one point in time, GW lost their fucking mind and decided to price the Trigon at 170 points. Now, admittedly, it had a 3-inch deep strike at that point. But and this is also, I'm sorry for some of the monstrosities that have been here hearing me yap about some of these things for a while. Yeah, I've been of the opinion we needed to be throwing more monsters in Vanguard Invader anyway, but what more can you expect from the guy named Mr. Monster on the interwebs? But so that now you have something Lone Op 18, and I'll just repeat this again for people that are newer here, um, to this channel specifically. I'm of the opinion that once you finally have movement that when you roll in advance matters to get outside of the 18-inch range or get inside the 18-inch range you previously were protecting yourself with, now you become a lot more valuable, and because of what you're putting it on. If your Trigon has 10-inch movement and you have a potential additional 6 inches of movement because of an advance and then can still charge, you have the fact of being outside of 18 inches semi-reliably, not the deep strike turn or whatever, or maybe. And here's, I'll talk about the other aspect of that too. But just before that, say that you needed to deploy safely, da 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 da, but you see a target down long that you want to throw your Trigon into. 18 inches blown up, guess what? Your Trigon not getting shot now. And I don't know too many things that can overwatch and kill a Trigon reliably. And I don't want to hear the answer. I know everybody's going to be typing. I don't want to hear it. The math on that just it doesn't back it right now. But I'm always willing to redo some calculations. I'm not even going to say it, but what I know everybody's running to the comments right now on. But so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of unseen lurkers is that I deep strike my Trigon. I deep strike over here, right, on my expansion objective. Until I have something more reliable that I want to put there because I'm using the Trigon as a beat stick. I don't imagine that it's going to survive for long. But then here comes the other thing about positioning and making sure that you're trying to take out some things, but you also don't want to expose yourself to too many things, right? But now you have a safety net with, again, an 18-inch lone up, and the fact that if you have your Trigon over here, right, because you know that you want to go into a Rhino that's right here, but the Land Raider Redeemer is right here. Previously, well, not even previously, just points wise, you weren't including the Tricon. It was too expensive. Then it came down to 150, and I think we all were still sulking about the fact that it has no rule really right now, and I'll talk about that too. Um, but as somebody that was advocating for 170 point Trigons, I'm loving this, right? But you want to throw your Trigon into Rhino here, but throwing that into here means you are now in line of sight of not okay. No, I don't have the graph pulled up or whatever, right? But or a map layout. I probably should have done that ahead of time. Wasn't really thinking too far in it. Didn't think I'd get to this portion of the video. But now you have typically, if your opponent has set themselves up well enough, giving yourself away in an angle that usually would pop a Trigon with relative ease, right? Lone up 18 means no. I've deep struck here. I advance and charge to beat your ass here. I probably uh, there's a good chance. I'm not going to say probably. There's a good chance I've killed the Rhino. I am now going to be around the things that have um gotten out of the Rhino or emergency disembarked out the Rhino because I popped it. Get some damage there, and my opponent doesn't really have an option to shoot down the Land Raider in that sense. Meanwhile, you send a bunch of Raveners for around the same points cost because they have Deep Strike and Vanguard Invader. And yes, they are infantry, so they could go straight through the walls, but now you incorporate Advance and Charge for a lone up 10-inch moving monster. You know, you can afford to go over here a little bit and make it just easier on yourself. But yes, you do have to keep in mind your CP usage. You do have to do that. But for the flow of a game, you're looking at, all right, I might spend 1 CP on Surprise Assault if that's my plan, and I might spend a CP on my opponent's turn for Unseen Lurkers, right? Now, that's of course not incorporating the turn 1 seeded Brood you might have done, but if that's the case, you probably didn't do Surprise Assault first turn. Maybe you did, but usually not in that case. But even then, you know, hey, we have our ways to get that CP manipulated, right? And I also want a word of caution. Just because you can do Invisible Hunter, I don't think you always should be. I know we've seen some funny things with things like Hypercrypt and Grey Knights and Deathwatch and whatnot. But, you know, uppy downies are good demons, but don't think that you have to do it every turn. The same way that I'll tell people you need to be using more strats in Crusher Stampede, I want to come back to Vanguard Onslaught because that's one thing that I think too many people read into. I have to spend a command point to do the thing because I can. Like, you'll find, and this is kind of what I want to stress with Crusher Stampede stuff, is that you'll find you just have things in places. If they were still on the board, walking over there compared to, you know, anything else, you can still kind of get there. So, you know, that aside, you open up that entire door to Lone Op 18, a monster that can get in there, do Strength 9 type shit, and then also the thing that it has over the Exocrine, while it has one less AP, right? Also should say though, on that fact, the AP of the Exocrine of AP3 is handy because with cover being everywhere, you're effectively AP2. Now, when you're talking about melee and don't have to worry about the benefit of cover in that aspect, you're back to the AP2. And the fact that now we have a a more appealing synapse option to go within the Vanguard Onslaught list. Neurolictor has always been appealing, we know this, but now that it's back down some points that, you know, I feel that it should have been. Back down to 80. Um, Now there's more ranges for Synapse, and you've been taking the Think Tank for a bit of shooting on top of that. There's ways to give your Trigon Synapse, so now you're hitting at Strength 10, AP2 for 12 attacks in the places that it matters. And going back to the Surprise Assault, why would I need to trigger that if I'm not going to try to finish it off with the gun? Because, duh, we're trying to do the Battle Shock test to enable our Neurolictors that we're putting in the list. So the specific point reductions for Neurolictor and Trigon might just stabilize Vanguard Onslaught as a detachment overall, and I look forward to it. But at the same time, I worry because not too many people are fond enough of the Trigon right now. And I can understand why. I agree that I still don't love how subterranean tunnels is being treated right now. But for the purposes of having a beat stick and the 6-inch deploy deep strike that isn't a charge after, you have a 12-inch gun to trigger the surprise assault, to trigger hopefully your Neurolictor. And this is a lot of hopefullys, which again is another point against Vanguard Onslaught. You're asking for a lot of hopefullys. That's the other thing that just with Vanguard Onslaught, unfortunately, there's a lot of hopefullys here. You're hoping that they fail either the Neurolictors test, you're hoping that they fail a surprise assault, you're hoping that they fail hunting grounds, you're hoping that your advance and charge rolls, you're hoping your advance roll is good, you're hoping that your charge roll is good. For some things. You're hoping, if you're using things like Raveners and Von Rheinsleepers, that an Overwatch doesn't just take you out. Because you're still a 4-up save. So that's why I don't really, on the Ravener side, I'm not too on the, yeah, let's go with the 4-up thing. Because, yeah, if a couple of good shots roll on an Overwatch, you're down a model. Which, maybe a model or two. And again, it's not the end of the world. But you lose quite the bit of damage output on some of those things. So having something that isn't likely to be overwatched, and even if it gets overwatched, you're probably not picking up all 14 wounds of it. It's probably not happening. Having something that has the strength of an Exocrine, and possibly more, and effectively the same AP of an Exocrine, with the same damage profile of an Exocrine, with more attacks of an Exocrine, you have a detachment and can uppy downy if that's needed, can reposition, has access to a reactive move, can trigger surprise assault in shooting and in melee. I would like to see Trigons be more incorporated, especially now that Neurolictors are there. And the other boost of the Vanguard Onslaught detachment is the fact that Exocrines and Tyranofexes have gone up. And the fact that people are more willing to try it now and experiment with it, hopefully, because this is a detachment that you were taking the Exocrine because of what you needed out of the profile. So, if that goes up to the same points as the Trigon, you see how that goes? 140 to 140. You're going to probably take the thing that can't be shot back and has effectively the same damage output. That's the angle that I hope that they're going for with this, and that I hope to see. As I've talked a lot about why I like Vanguard Onslaught, the tricks you can do, the funny ha-has, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of hoping. There's a lot of hoping that other detachments don't need to do. And at the end of the day, you do still have to ask yourself the question, do I need to be doing this in Vanguard Onslaught? Is there anywhere else I could be doing these things with less effort? And sometimes that answer is you could be doing it somewhere else. The We all know how matchups go in anything, right? But if you go into demons, they pass a battle shock test and you've healed them. And now you're just there looking stupid when you've revolved your entire game plan around it. But you have now a better beat stick with some attacks and some real damage behind it. So I hope we see more Trigon inclusion in the list overall. I like the Trigon. I've talked about it a couple of times. I like the Trigon. Even at 170 points. Now, mind you, that was a 3-inch deep strike, and I was salty. I'm not going to act like I was not salty when it went down to 6 inches. But for that, putting a monster of 14 wounds in a spot your opponent did not expect for now 140 points, usually asked, even if it didn't pick up 140 points itself, usually ask your opponent to put 140 points into it. More than likely. So that's something that I like about the Trigon. It will divert attention, distract, like this is Deep Strike Distraction CarnivX for points that I am willing to pay. 140 points is 6 Von Ryan's Leapers. 140 points. And mind you, again, I like cost efficiency. I like the Von Ryan's Leapers. I'll take them. I'll take Trigon. What I'm not taking, you've heard me say it enough, is units that are 200 points plus that can be picked up by something like my 140 points here. If I go and opt out of those 200 points plus units, I have 140 here and can still have the conversation for 80 here. Because that's the other thing where, not to harp too much on, but I do just want to. I understand if people disagree with any of my opinions, that's fine and dandy, but I want the clapbacks to make more sense for most of the part. I want there to be a better logic a lot of the times, and I know this is a lot of hoping for the internet, but you can't just look at it. You have to incorporate all the things that go into it, right? So if I say I don't love how much you put into lictors, it's like, all right, I've brought 3 lictors, I brought 2 lictors for 120 points to score a couple of points here and there. They're not going to pick up 60 points back. They're going to be a blocker. They might get a screen, and then you come in, it's just like, yeah, but thanks to Synapse, now they are going to be punching this, that, whatever. But then I didn't just spend 60 or 120. I spent 120 plus something like another 80. So that's 200 points for, again, probably not 200 points back. That's a different operation that you have to include all of it into the equation for those discussions. So the TODR for this portion is, I think Vanguard Onslaught will now stabilize. What that means for it in the long term and meta matchups and what it'll do and will it be our best performing detachment, I wouldn't go that far because, again, like I said, it's a lot of hoping by its damn self. It is a lot of fucking hoping. You're hoping that you don't get the wrong matchup, whether that be a lot of bodies that are screening you out from positions, whether that be a harder hitting melee unit, whether that be something that actually not only can shoot but can take a hit, um, like get into range for shooting to annihilate some of your things while being absorbed by taking a hit. All of these things Vanguard Onslaught still has to worry about. And now that the units are cheaper, real units are cheaper, because that's the other reason why the Moloch, it was, we all went, yeah, I can uppy downy my Moloch and get some mortal wounds out there, but then you rolled the mortal wounds and you see, all right, I've spent 3 CP for this, and I might have done 4 mortal wounds in those 3 turns. I can't, this isn't sustainable. And the strength 8, AP 2, damage 1 really isn't progressing my army past the shit that AP 2, damage 1 warriors were doing for somebody else's list. I've put a lot into this, right? Damage 1 overload from Raveners and Leapers that I was doing anyway. I shouldn't say overload for those compared to the Prime, but getting into those positions with bonus movement, all of these things. That's why the Moloch kinda didn't do it for Vanguard Onslaught in itself. And I'm sorry, I know I said TODR and then I ended up not DRing on that part. But for this, Vanguard Onslaught is positioned well to stabilize. It is still going to be rough, but I don't think its lows are going to be as low as they get. Its highs, yeah, I think the skill, not even skill, the floor of the detachment. Well, nothing changed about the detachment. I guess, yeah, basically the lows. If with these things, the lows shouldn't be nearly as low. Now, again, it's still always up to the player and who the player is playing. But I don't think we will go back to 30% and 40% win rate weeks now that this is kind of pointed to these situations. The highs might be higher, but if you go from winning one tournament every 2 months to winning a tournament a month, that's 100% improvement, right? So we take that. Vanguard Onslaught is looking better. Now that I've done yapping about the part that I'm really excited about, because I like the Trigons. Apparently, I just simp for the Vanguard Invader monster models and the Norns, who should have been assassins. But I digress, because it's the ultimate towering assassin. But whatever. Going on, sorry, to the Exocrine. Got hit. It's 140 points, just like the Trigon. Now, beyond me hoping that our list looks different, um, in the sense of not the Exocrine, you're still taking the Exocrine, but maybe instead of a Maliceptor or two or bricks of Broodlord Gene Steals, again, I'm not that upset about that when you tailor that in with certain detachments, right? That's not my um grievance. But I hope that I'll put it this way. One of the things that annoys me about any criticism of the balance of the Tyranids, both ways, is that if I say the codex can be better balanced, it's like, what do you mean? We've seen all of these things at a point in time in a list, but they exclude why you've seen it. It's because the list has a skeleton, unfortunately. And until you get to the specialization of some detachments like Vanguard Onslaught and Assimilation Swarm, the other ones have the same as skeleton. I am taking a Hive Tyrant, I'm taking at least two Exocrines, probably 1 to 2 Tyranofexes, maybe Crusher Stampede. I'll go for the third if I'm feeling froggy. So, um, when you have all the other detachments having that skeleton, that baseline of what is being put into the list, yeah, after you don't have space for your fourth Exocrine or your fourth Tyranofex, you gotta put some other shit in. So, until I start seeing lists that are completely optionally void of Exocrines and Tyranofexes and the Walkrent, then you can start arguing about the internal codex being amazing, the internal codex balance being amazing, because it isn't relying on the things that you had to take anyway. If I throw a Psychophage in one day, two Pyrovores in another, 15 Barbgons another day, that's not to say that, oh, the Barbgons are in an amazing spot because we took 15 of them in one list. I'm still asking about the Exocrine. That's what did it for me. That's what did it for me. So I don't have hard feelings about the Exocrine. The reason I want to talk about it further is because I fucking told you. I know the people that need to hear me say I told you so aren't going to hear it, but I am a Tyranids player. So of course I've heard a lot of complaining about, oh, the Exocrine. And then I'm like, what about it? It's too hard. It hurts my elite models. And I'm like, it has D6 plus 3 attacks. It's blast. It has one gun. It is our only gun in the entire faction. You have something in damn near every faction that is the Exocrine for you, Imperium or Chaos player. Damn near most of you have an Exocrine. What do you mean? And you have a better Exocrine. All of them have had that have access to a Predator Destructor, Predator Annihilator, this fucking model. I hate this model because of the shit I have to hear about this model. I hate this because not only, T10, 3 up save, both of them have it. 2 more inches of movement. That means you have better range. Alright. 11 wounds to my 14, but you can get a 5 of feel no pain. But guess what? No matter what detachment you're playing, you have smoke. I get to do that in one detachment. You get to do this in every detachment. You get several weapon profiles. I get one. I have blast. I can annihilate the infantry a little bit harder. Or I guess I should say any unit with 5+ models. Whatever. You have something to tackle, to take a chance to tackle heavies. You are tackling the same infantry I'm tackling. You are taking out some other bullshit. You get to use big guns never tire. I do not. I am using a blast gun. You touch this, it can shield shoot. You touch this, it cannot. It is a vehicle. This is a monster. What does that mean? Tank shock. If I have to charge my Exocrine, it's a bad day. If you decide to charge your Predator Destructor because the model in your way has 1 or 2 wounds left and you can just tank shock it away, that is a real option you have on top of the 3 melee attacks. We're not actually looking at that being a real thing, but you still have tank shock. If I have to charge a fucking Exocrine, I have 3 attacks, strength 7, AP 0, damage 2 hitting on 3s. It's fucked. This thing just gets turned off. All of you that have a Predator Destructor, I don't want to hear it. That's not even to mention that my army rule does nothing for this thing. Synapse? Nah. What the fuck is that? Shadow in the Warp doesn't affect this thing. That doesn't do it. If you're playing a Space Marine unit, that can get Oath of Moment. Cough, cough. If you're playing a Space Marine unit, the Predator Destructor can benefit from Oath of Moment. You're playing Chaos. Pretty sure that thing gets Dark Packs. I'm not looking right now to double check. Pretty sure it gets that. You can spread some Contagion Range, Death Guard, Blessing of Corn, I think, whatever the fuck. World Eaters. Emperor's Children don't have these or something like that. I don't remember. I keep forgetting what they had. I gotta really look at that range again. Um, and who else? Thousand Suns. Yeah, you're not using Cabal rituals on it, but actually, I think you can double move it or some shit. One of the Cabal rituals. Either way, you had the Predator Destructor. I've been talking about it being equivalent this entire fucking time, but you have better tools around it. My Exocrine, its saving grace is that I can shoot some fucking elite infantry over there, and I'll probably die. If you don't turn my Exocrine off some way, that's not on me, that's on you. I can't necessarily just turn this thing off. And trying to get rid of it with smoke, yeah, that's the 3 wounds right there. That's the 3 wound difference right there. And the tank shock makes up for whatever damage you thought you were fucking missing. So, this is diverted away from talking about the implications about Tyranids as a whole, whatever, and me just bitching about I fucking told you, shut the fuck up, talk to me about this damn Exocrine when you had the Predator Destructor. All addition. Somebody, oh, the Exocrine, I don't give a fuck. Rant over. Going to the next rant, though, Tyranofex. Only real anti-tank option for us over here, because to the same point of if you don't turn off my Exocrine, that is blast. If you have let me shoot 6 Zoes with las cannons into your tank. I've crossed the Great Sea with them, outside of Vanguard onslaught, right? Great Sea, Red Sea. Cross the sea with them, cross the ocean at 5 inches at a time, and got them into range to annihilate your tank. You deserve that shit. I don't care. You deserve that shit. Tyranofex, 48-inch range. Again, the range difference, 48 inches, 36. Just saying. 48-inch range. 200 points. I know we don't like that it's gone up 10 points. But again, they standardized for the most part with things like the DDA. So while I'm not a fan of it, if that's the gun and the profile that they see, 18 AP4, 18 AP4 means 200 points. I guess it means 200 points. Am I going to be that hurt about it? A little bit, not terribly, because here's the thing, I do like the model, but at a point I did really have to look at some of my list and go, could this be something else? And for my Vanguard onslaught list, I had a Tyranofex in it. I'll be honest. Seated broods, Tyranofex on a board edge will upset some people. But you know, it went to, well, I guess I could think more about what truly is offered to me now with a Neurotyrant and the Zoes, 200-point Zoes, and the Neurotyrant inclusion and what they actually do for me, on top of adding uh, increased chances to Shadow in the Warp. Now that the Neurolictors down, that gets better. Anything that's Battle Shock, that's better. And providing Neuroloids to Trigons, it's all better. So that is one alteration I made, and currently I don't know how I feel about it. I do have a bit of attachment to that Tyranofex and the fact that I like the model. Um, but I just don't have the points for it right now, and I can't really see that opening up. And I know anybody that'll see something and see the things that I like to run with Vanguard, so you'd be like, no, you can definitely drop that. And I'm gonna be like, no, fuck you. So, there's that. Right, there is that. Tyranofex up to 200. Standardized, just like Exocrine got standardized with this thing. Uh, you know, anti-tank, I just want there to be more options. And this is going to now segue into probably a later video. But as I'm one of the ones hoping for Hive Fleet Gorgon, I know a lot of people are hoping for Hive Fleet Kronos. But ultimately, going back to this damn thing. Oh, Tyranids have great shooting. They have the Exocrine. Alright, name another. The Maliceptor. Alright, 2. I got shot by a Tyranofex. My tank blew up. Alright, sure, fuck it. 3. 3 out of 33. Doesn't mean you are a great shooting army. That means I have a decent shooting model. That's the Exocrine. All roads lead back to Exocrine. So to that, and going once again back to something I've talked about, if Vanguard Onslaught could have ranged warriors that hit on 3s, I would start to have faith, trust, and pixie dust in this fucking detachment way more often. I would. Um, Picking them up, putting them down. Again, that's one thing I warned about, Warrior Biofilm Onslaught. If they actually get around to making the Warriors semi-decent, fix that. Fix the barb guns. And, there's not much of a fix to the barb guns because, again, I'm a barb god appreciator. Alright? Put that out there. Give them an AP. Give them an AP or 2. Just so they can keep up with things that have been going on with the game design of 40k this edition. Keep that. Pyrovores, fix the ranged warriors. Then we start to have a conversation about maybe get back around to the Carnifexes too. And we start to have a conversation of having shooting units. Not just unit, Sorry, unit. Not just unit. And again claiming that the entire faction is awesomely internally balanced and awesome shooting. If it's just one model, keeping up a lot of the faction's things, it's not. It's not. Sorry. It's not. So there's that on that. Hive Tyrant went down 10 points. And I'm glad that GW had a semblance of sense into this regard. Because you cannot punish the Hive Tyrant for it having everything the army needs. That is not great. So, and this isn't just that, well, if you play without a Hive Tower, you freed up 225 points. What are you going to do with that 225 points realistically? What were you going to do with that 235 points realistically? That's another squad of Brewlord Gene Stealers. Is that third squad in your invasion fleet list going to be better than having a Hive Tyrant to reduce the cost? Sustain, assault and lethals in your invasion fleet list. Is it better than any of that? Is it better than providing synapse to your backline? Is it better than any of that? No, it's not. Because again, I talk about actually spending the points and what the points are actually doing. And again, that's not another knock on Brewlord Gene Stealers or a knock at Brewlord Gene Stealers, but just to think about what points you're doing with what. If you take out 235 points and put in a warrior unit for 215, what does that get you? In my opinion, not much. Others may argue otherwise. It probably wasn't doing that. So asking the Hive Tyrant to absorb all the faction's needs and then making it so that every time I write a list, I have to start over a tenth of the way down. That's not cool. It's not cool. It's not cool. So I'd still argue the Hive Tyrant could go down a bit more. Um, but I see where they want it. They want it around gas range, and that's where they tried to take the Primarchs out of point and like the Bellicors. But if I'm being honest, I really like the design they're doing now with things like Bellicor and Gilliman. I know that's a hot one, people. I'm not saying that I'm a fan of going against Gilliman, but it's the fact that I want the ones that are supposed to be leaders to feel like it. I want the Gilliman over there to feel like, damn, Gilliman is on the table. This is causing me an issue. Um, doesn't have to be an oppressive issue, but this is causing me an issue. Okay. Bellicor is on the table. That dude over there, he's a bad mamma jamma. All four of the chaos deities were like, "This is our boy." Okay, he's on the table. He stopped me from shooting damn near any of his army one turn, and now he has his entire army re-rolling hits into me his turn, or the next turn I should say. And because he has his own fucking detachment, the way Gilliman basically has an entire fucking codex, uh, the author of the codex has a codex. The way that Bellicor has a detachment for Shadow Legion himself now, yeah, you get to have sustained devastating wounds every time. I not can't be mad at it, right? Can't be that upset about it. Um, so shit like that. That's the design that I like and will like. I don't like the, well, how do we deal with heavies in our army? We have no high tier shooting, no high tier melee. Give them lethal. Slap it on gas. Slap it on the Hive Tyrant. That way, in the once per turn Waha and the one per model fucking faction shooting wise, you just pray for sixes and it'll take care of the big thing. Now they've included tank busters. You don't need gas every time. 235 points. Don't really need to spend it that way. But he still does things. And I get, they want to separate some things. But I like the Bellicor level style. And to that point, when they're pointed to those points, Sorry, that was a lot of saying the word point there. Um, Gilliman, if you do free up 350 points or 300, what's Gilliman now? 300 something points. 350? No, Bellacor's 350. Gilliman something. Either way, if you free up those points, there's a conversation of, or an Angron. Is this 3 Terminator units, or is this 1 Broodlord Genestealer unit? Right? Like, is this 3 bricks of Terminators on the Angron? Or, like, there's a discussion there. Do I get rid of my Hive Tyrant and have 3? Do I have not even 3 units? Do I have fucking, what, 9? Yeah, 9 Von Ryan's Leapers. You know, like, that's the shit that I'm not a fan of. If I need to take the Hive Tyrant, because that's whatever, I want the rules to not just be because the rest of the rules are missing from my codex. And that I have to pray for 6s when it comes to Hive Tyrant and Gas. Right? That's not what I want. And they took those steps and they're slowly addressing that now. But, you know, you can't punish Gas and the Hive Tyrant because you haven't designed anything else in the codex to actually handle large portions of the game. So, do I want to see the Hive Tyrant get boosted up to Be'lakor and fucking Gilliman level? Hell no. I would like it to go back into the way of going down. I want what they're doing for Call right now, unfortunately. I want Call level points for that shit. I want, oh, this is your commander. This is not your supreme commander. Because you are a servant of the Hive Mind. And if there was to be one, it's the Swarm Lord. I don't like that the Hive Tyrant is more appealing than Swarmy. I want the Swarm Lord to get the Be'lakor Gilliman treatment. Hopefully not the Lion treatment. Not Lionel Johnson. That boy needs help. But you know, that's where I want them to take these models. If it means that I spend 300 points for a Swarm Lord, but I can trigger Shadow in the Warp twice, and when it triggers, my entire faction is +1 to hit and +1 AP against Battle Shock targets, fuck it. Yes. Make it feel like I've brought the Swarm Lord onto it. Don't talk to me about what actually happens in the lore. Fuck it. Fuck that. But again, you know, even to that point, the Worf effect, I don't love what they've done to the Avatar of Cain. Don't love it. I understand that the Phoenix Lords are quote unquote more important, but that is the avatar of their deity, so don't really know why that translation happened that way, that they've kind of nuked the Avatar of Cain. So I want him back. I want Swarm Lord, Avatar of Cain, Gilliman, Gaz, Call, Be'lakor. I want all of those. I want your leaders to feel like fucking leaders. I am okay with my Hive Tyrant being around Archon level, being around Overlord level and shit. But I want Silent King and all. I want those leaders to feel like fucking leaders of their faction. I want them to be an Angron. And that way, one day, if I feel like, damn, I really want to play with 3 Trigons and 3 Broodlord Genestealer bricks and Vanguard Onslaught, I'm doing that and I don't feel as bad because that's what the detachment is asking me for. And I don't feel like I'm necessarily missing my Hive Tyrant Swarm Lord being there for their points. But if I go to another detachment like Assimilation Swarm or Crusher Stampede, I can trade that off. Did I take Swarmy? Or did I go for a Hive Tyrant and an Exocrine? And mind you, the way the points shake out now, that's a lot of fucking shit. But I'm saying to more so to the point, I would rather the Swarm Lord feel like a Hive Tyrant and an Exocrine. I know that's asking for a bit much from some people's things, but that's basically what I'm getting at. I want it to feel like, damn, you really brought them on the table. Fuck. Alright. Well, now I've taken out Gilliman, your Swarm Lord, your Avatar of Cain, Gaz. Ha ha ha, I succeed. Not just, well, I needed the lethals. Fuck. And go about it that way. So, the reason Hive Tyrant went down is because, damn, I don't know if they're listening or looked at enough Reddit posts or whatever, but you can't punish the Hive Tyrant for the sins of the game designers' rules that wrote it. So, I don't know how long this one was. I feel like I yapped for quite some time, so I'm going to shut the fuck up now. But hey, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.